Support comes from Sunday Morning Cafe, presenting Resilience and Creativity, a concert and interview with Royce Martin, creator of Swag Time, and resilience researcher Dr. Tom Wagner on August 2nd, sundaymorningcafe.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. This week, crowds of people in St. Louis gathered to welcome a celebrity. That was the sound of the Big Boy, the world's largest operating steam train. Officially known as Union Pacific No. 4014, the locomotive was welcomed by excited crowds as it passed through St. Louis County on Monday. At 133 feet long and 1.2 million pounds, the Big Boy lives up to its name. The model debuted all the way back in the 1940s, but the one that just visited here is actually the last of its kind. It also holds a special place in the hearts of people all over the country and many people in the St. Louis region. Among them is Aiden Drohr. He's a tour guide and train operator at the National Museum of Transportation. Aiden, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So you get to work around one of these Big Boy trains every day, and there are only 8 still in existence. One of them is at the National Museum of Transportation. Help us to understand, Aiden, why these are so special. Why were they made, and why were they made so big?
So, like you said, the Big Boys were first built in the early 1940s, and they were primarily built for hauling wartime traffic for World War II, as things were starting to ramp up at that point, and just mainly because Union Pacific, they had been experimenting with larger locomotives at that point, and the Big Boy would be the largest steam locomotive they would ever end up having built for them. And like you said, they were some of the largest in the world when they were constructed. And the 4014 is now it's the largest operating engine today.
Mm-hmm. Now, not to point out the obvious, trains are already pretty big for the most part. What is different about the Big Boy, though?
So basically, the Big Boy, from your standard steam locomotive, it has 2 engines underneath it. So those are the parts with the cylinders, all the driving rods, and the big driving wheels. So it has 2 sets of 8 driving wheels, both propelled by 2 sets of cylinders on each side of the engine. So there are engines that are like that, but it is the biggest engine that has ever used that kind of system.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been going to the National Museum of Transportation since you were very small.
Yes.
What do you remember of your first time seeing the Big Boy that is there?
I can't recall exactly, but I do know just with the Big Boy and all the other amazing equipment out there. It's just this, especially for a young child, it's just the scale of everything out there. And even today, everything is still absolutely massive out there. Engines are anywhere average from 12 to 16 feet tall.
Is there anything else about this train, apart from the size, that seems to appeal to people? The way that it looks? Is it the way that it sounds?
There's all kinds of things when it comes to steam locomotives that attract people. And like you said, for a lot of people, it's the size, it's the power. For me, it's like just you get so many things with a steam locomotive that you don't get with a regular engine. There's so many unique smells and sounds, and everything is just it's just kind of elevated from like a regular kind of experience with any other locomotive of that type.
Mm-hmm. Now, as a tour guide, do you get a lot of common questions from people as you are taking them through the museum site?
I see. A lot of common questions. Usually is how big is it? How many were made? Do any of them still run? Stuff like that. Can I go inside it? That's always the big one, which you can go inside the one at the museum, which is a real unique experience.
And we were talking about some of the things that have been done over the years. I took my son when he was just 3 to the museum, but I don't think that we were able to go there. What are some of the updates that have been made to the Big Boy that does live at the National Museum of Transportation?
So a number of years ago, it went through a complete makeover. We repainted the engine from stem to stern. So it went all through a whole coat of primer, and then we put a new coat of paint on it. It was contracted out. But even today, the paint for the most part is still holding up very nicely. So it still looks very good today.
Are there certain parts inside the train that you feel particularly drawn to?
I say I do always, and I made this a point to start to learn about all of the different controls inside a steam locomotive and how they work and everything. So and almost everyone's always immediately drawn to the engineer side of the locomotive because that's where you have the throttle, you have the brakes, you have all the different controls to actually propel the engine forward. So I always feel kind of drawn to that side of the engine. But there's just so much going on inside that cab. There's all kinds of levers, gauges, valves.
How many people did it take to operate that train?
Generally depends. The bare minimum, you need 2 people. You have an engineer and you have a fireman. The engineer controls the movement of the engine. The fireman is responsible for making sure that the fire is stoked with coal. And then you would also up in the cab have a head-end brakeman who kind of was the brakeman for the front part of the train. There was another brakeman who sat in the back of the train. And then sometimes you'd have like a road foreman or someone like that riding along with the train as well.
When you think about what this train was like when it was operating at its full capacity, what comes to mind for you, Aiden? Is there something that you wish you could have experienced firsthand?
I say it would have been neat to see 4006 running, which that's our engine. It'd be neat to see that one running, and it's just kind of like imagining like seeing the 4014 running. It's just kind of like transplanting all that over to 4006. And it would be really neat to see it kind of like that.
Now, the big boy that visited just recently, I understand that it was put back into service after not having run for decades, right?
Yeah, it was put on display at a museum in Southern California called Rail Giants. And they had it out there up until about 2013. That's when Union Pacific acquired it, took it back to their shops in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and spent the better part of 4 or 5 years bringing the engine back into service.
How long ago did you come to know that this train would be coming through? And what were some of the things that you and your co-workers at the museum were saying about that?
I'd say the eastern leg of its cross-country tour was announced back, I think, around the end of April is when it was first announced. And immediately I was going through looking, where's St. Louis, and eventually found it. And eventually as soon as we figured out what days it was going to be here, I immediately started planning. I know we also immediately started planning for stuff at the museum just to try to make everything as streamlined as possible when it comes to like events or going to see it and whatnot.
Were there certain regulars at the museum who were really focused on making sure that they could see the big boy come through?
From what I understand, yes. What we did is, so we have 2 parking lots at the museum. We have our main lot, and then we have an upper parking lot. And what they ended up doing with that parking lot is they sold, basically they were calling them VIP parking spots for, I think it was $40.14.
Okay.
And those went on sale back in May, and I think that parking lot sold out within 24 hours. And so that was a lot of our our museum regulars or our diehard fans who really wanted to make sure they had a spot.
Well, we heard from a commenter on Facebook, Vixie. This has been on my bucket list for a very long time. What makes this a bucket list worthy train?
Just like we've said, it is the largest operating engine in the world. It doesn't really have any regular operating territory. It just kind of operates wherever Union Pacific decides it's going to operate. And so this is the 3rd time it's been through the St. Louis area since it was restored. First time was in 2021, then it came through again in 2024, and this is the first time it's come back since 2024. So it's always kind of like something for people who weren't able to see it the few times it came in before, or it's like this is their first time being tuned into it. So I'd definitely say it's a bucket list thing for many people.
We're speaking today with Aiden Drohr. He's a tour guide and train operator at the National Museum of Transportation. And we're talking about the big boy, number 4014, that came through the St. Louis region just yesterday. Now, over the weekend, Jason said, "I hate to say that Monday might be a a day I skip out on work to take my kids to go see this train. I was born in 1994 and still remember when I was old enough to watch it come through St. Louis. And here we are in 2026. I have two little ones of my own. That generational memory building, is this something that you have seen happen around trains like this one?
Oh, absolutely. It happens not just with this train, but with other different but other steam locomotives especially. Lots of people who remember, like older generations who remember, they remember steam locomotives, or they remember their dad or someone talked about steam locomotives, and so they're always trying. I always see people trying to pass that down to the younger generations.
Mm-hmm. Were there any commemorative items that were sold?
I know at the museum we had a T-shirt that had a picture of our big boy and the 4014 on it. I think it said something like 2 big boys, 1 town.
Mm-hmm.
But we sold, I know I was talking with some of our managers in the guest relations department, and they said we almost completely sold out of those T-shirts even before Monday.
Okay. Now, I understand that you had quite the hectic day yesterday, Aiden, because you were chasing the big boy. Tell us about that.
So yeah, hectic is a good way to describe it. It was I started bright and early at about 8:30 in the morning in Webster Groves, Missouri, and they were supposed to leave Union Station at 9:30. As things with the railroad go, not everything always goes according to plan. They were several minutes late, which was to be expected with this kind of thing. But they rolled through Webster Groves at about maybe, I'd say closer to maybe 10:30 or so, but it was pretty neat. They were going uphill, lots of smoke, lots of steam. Mm-hmm. And then from there, got back on the road, jumped in front of it, got into Eureka, Missouri, saw it fly through Eureka, headed out just outside of Washington, Missouri. Saw it. It was kind of cruising. It actually came to a stop in Washington that wasn't scheduled, which was kind of neat. So that gave us even more time to get out in front of it. We saw it go into Herman, and then we finally saw it one last time out in Gasconade, Missouri.
Mm-hmm. And when you say we, who are we talking about?
Me and my girlfriend chased it out there, so she put up with all of my nonsense yesterday. I'm very, very thankful for that.
And what were the kinds of things that you and she talked about as you were following this train out, to Gasconade where you stopped?
So Union Pacific actually offers a tracker app. So you can actually track and see where the engine is when it's on its excursion. So I was driving, she was looking at the tracker scene, making sure we were staying in front of it most of the time.
Why was it important for you to spend, especially such a hot day, chasing after this train, especially when you can see one, at the museum? I'll
say one thing I always like to say is if you ever have an opportunity to go see an operating steam locomotive, absolutely take it, just because it is such a neat experience. And specifically with Big Boy, this is the first time I've got to see it since it came through in 2021. So it's been a minute, and anytime I get an opportunity like this, I absolutely take it. So I was really, really excited to see it come through. Just all, again, like I said, all the smoke, the sounds, smells, everything.
Mm-hmm. Our producer, Lila Halilbasic, and STLPR photographer, Charlotte Keene, they went to see all the people who were out there, and it was an absolute crush of people. How much of that was expected? I mean, clearly, this train is it's important to a lot of people. Was there any fear that the temperatures would keep people away?
I highly doubt it. There was, I would say, like this, and lots of people, even people who aren't railroad enthusiasts, heard about it, and just like, it's the world's biggest steam engine. And so, but there was, everywhere I went, there was so many people just standing alongside the tracks waiting for it to come through. So,
and this is all ages, right?
Oh, absolutely. There were little kids. There were people in older generations were there. It was wide age ranges.
Mm-hmm. One of the things Lila mentioned was how she could feel the train in her body as it moved by. What was that like for you?
It's pretty cool. It was awesome because, and like I said, some of the places I saw it at, it was doing 40, 45 miles an hour, and seeing something that big going that fast, it's just like, oh dear Lord.
And you drive one of the trains at the museum,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
What is the difference between the big boy and the one that you get to?
The one I get to run is a lot smaller than the big boy. It's what we would call it's a narrow gauge, very narrow gauge engine. It runs on tracks it has rails only 24 inches apart from each other. It's very similar. If you ever rode the train out at the St. Louis Zoo, it's exactly like that. So my engine's a lot smaller than the big boy.
Is there another train that is on your own bucket list, after the big boy?
I'll say there's a few engines I have on my bucket list. There's an engine out in Portland, Oregon. It's Southern Pacific 4449. It's a very neat locomotive. They call it the Daylight because it's painted in these brilliant orange and red colors. So that one, it's out at a museum in Portland, Oregon. I'd love to go see that engine someday.
Aiden Drohr is a tour guide and train operator at the National Museum of Transportation. Aiden, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing what you experienced.
Absolutely.
This episode was produced by Danny Wissentowski.
With production assistance from Lila Halal-Bashich.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aiden Drohr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Hi, I'm Laura Hamden, and my colleague Jessica Rogan and I are your daily hosts of the Gateway newsletter. We meet with the editors in the STLPR newsroom every weekday to bring you the top local stories of the day in a quick and easy 6-minute read by 6 a.m. In an age of overwhelm, it's a refreshing, thoughtful take on the news day, if we do say so ourselves. Fine-tune your daily news habit with the Gateway newsletter. Subscribe at stlpr.org/gateway.